Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Sustainable Work. I have an amazing speaker with me here today. Her name is Melahni Aki. Melahni is the founder of Everyday Leaders Professional Coaching and Consulting, a certified John Maxwell Team leadership coach, speaker, and trainer. And as a certified Why Institute agent, she helps others discover their own why. Melahni professional influence began at Walt Disney World and carried into financial services, fundraising, and medical device sales and leadership. She believes in the power of our mindset to design our life with purpose. She's a popular event master of ceremonies, voice actor, leadership podcast host of Everyday Leaders 1550, best-selling author, motivational speaker, and life strategy coach who challenges her clients to dream beyond their limiting beliefs and create better strategic ways to make sense out of the possibilities in front of them to change the world. What she knows is that when you know your why and start with your why, what you do has more impact. Hi, Melahni, welcome.
Gosh, it just brings tears to my eyes to hear that because it's so true. It's who I am.
Yes,
It's
and
how
you're
I
so
sustain.
amazing.
It's how I sustain. You talk about the influence of your topic, and it is about sustaining, and it's because that's who you are. So thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so happy you're here, and I can't wait to hear more about you and the work that you do. So let's start there. Tell us, who are you?
Well, I'm a master of all things, I feel like. The thing is with me when I go back and say, well, where did it start and how do you do what you do today? It's because I really haven't changed that much. What I'm doing today is it just resonates with what influenced me when I was young and the curiosity that I had to step into some of this stuff. It was really the learning of when I could just turn that on louder. Like, when could I have that voice? When did I give myself the freedom and the permission to start using it bigger? And that's what I've been learning. And so today, I my dream is to be an MC or a voice actor or a host for events, and interview full time. 1,000 hours a day is what I say because I love understanding other people's journeys, helping them to realize their dreams. I think you read challenging people's beliefs. I love that, and I think in interview formats, you really make people stop and think. And so, whether that's coaching them, whether that's doing a podcast interview, or helping to do a virtual event, you really get a step into understanding how people think and then bringing what they do and what they believe, to the power of the public. And so it's really important. It gives you the validity. When you speak something, it's almost like, well, I believed it in my mind, but when I speak it, it becomes. And I think that's what I found that really does happen with people. And, and so it gave me bigger power to just kind of live my dreams. And so anyway, I just, there's so much more to it. But, I think faith has a big part in my life of where I started. And so I was influenced by my great grandparents that they built an evangelistic center here in Indianapolis. And so when they built that, it became a nursing home and a school and a tabernacle. And so they had priests, or ministers from all over the country, at that time to come in and preach. And my grandfather was a song evangelist. And so what he did is he went around from, city to city every 10 days. And he would sing at these camp meetings and revivals. And so as I was growing up, I would travel with them and I would learn, different, I got to travel and got to see different parts of the country, but I also became really adaptable to learning new things and new people and new challenges, and never had, I guess I never developed that fear of change. And so that's what's helped me today, learn like, wow, I've always done that. So when I say that people say they have this aha moment of I was this and then I believe this about myself, I don't really think I have that specifically. I just feel like I have this momentum today because I decided that you have always had this within you, right? It's kind of like, watching Somewhere Over the Rainbow. It's Dorothy saying, you've always had it within you. Just start to believe differently. And so I think that's what's happened on my journey.
Okay, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And it's interesting, there's a lot of, we're talking about change today a lot, right? Because the world is changing and people are leaning into or forced to lean into being okay with change and adapting to change. And I know that it's difficult for people. And also, being in an organizational psychologist, there's a big topic in the whole field about organizational change and change management and how difficult it is to change the structures. And the reason why it's so difficult, right? Because to change the structures, you need to change the people's minds. You need to change the way that people think about change. Because change is scary. Change requires you to take risks, and it just feels so much safer to stay where you are because it's so familiar. So it's interesting, like it sounds like learning is your superpower. That
That's my number one on when I took Strength Finders. I'm a big assessment person. And when I took Strength Finders, my number one was learner. And I thought, okay, that makes sense. And then, I thought for all these other ones, like I'm an I on the disc, I'm an ID. So I need lots of activity and I want to try to create things and, want to try to lead teams and influence people. And so that's what pulled me a lot of my career, Maria, into things of, being a specialist or being on certain teams and encouraging change in behavior. Because, again, people saw in me what I didn't really see in myself. I knew how I showed up and I knew what I was comfortable with, which was change. I was comfortable with change. And other people saw that. So they put me on things on teams or in organizations where I would lead change, right? And so I would be the one to say, okay, we need to get the behavior of the mindset of a sales team into a different space, into a different product line. And so I would be that one that would help create that change and that momentum. And I never really thought about it until I started becoming certified with the Y Institute. And I'll tell you why. Because I
uh,
always thought I was a contributor, right? I always thought I showed up because I wanted to just be a part of. I'm an only child. I lost my father when I was 5 years old. And so all this faith, I thought, well, I'm supposed to just contribute. I'm supposed to give. I'm supposed to add value. And that's my heart. And that's what I do. But when I took the why assessment, I learned that my why is actually challenge.
mm,
And so that completely made sense to me, saying, okay, I show up to challenge the status quo. I show up to try to make something in a space where nobody else has thought about something before. And that's because I'm adaptable. I'm not afraid to change. I'm not afraid to push the envelope. And I'm not afraid to make things look different. And so, that's where I go, wow, had I not had that confidence early and learned those lessons, I wouldn't feel the same way that I do today.
absolutely. I think it's so important for a change maker, right? Which who you are, to have that ability to challenge.
Mhm.
So
But you feel so out of place sometimes because I'm like, well, I don't want to hurt people's feelings, but it's the way that I operate, right? So I see things differently in the world. Like if something's already created, I don't want to just fit into that. I don't like the lines. I don't like a box. I don't like to say, just follow those rules. That's probably why I don't like to cook because you have to follow instructions. I'm not about that. I want to create something that looks and feels different. And, my training at Disney. So I went to Disney because I had grown up there and my grandparents lived in Orlando. And I thought, what a great experience before I go to college to learn from people that have influenced me my entire life. How do they make a great customer experience? Right. So I went down and applied and worked for the summer before I went to college. And what I learned was how to treat people, how to make things different, how to make connected relationships, with people that may only be in front of you one time, but it's that reputation that you have and it's that experience that you leave them with, right? Maya Angelou says it's not what you say, but it's how you make someone feel. And I think that lesson, along with so many other things in my life, have just, made me think about the consistency, the reputation, what you believe in, and really living that instead of just saying, well, okay, I can tuck that back away, but when I show up, I'm going to act differently. And that's never been me. I'm an open book, right? I say I'm simple, and people say, no, you're complicated. I'm like, no, I'm not. I just like to challenge things. I don't like to stay stagnant. So,
It's interesting that you mentioned creating an experience. I think it relates to so many things in life and in this that we talk about in the summit. If we talk about organization, right, it's the experience you create for your customer, whomever they are. It's the experience also that you create for the employees that work within your organization. So creating a certain experience um, is very important. So how do you do that? Like, where does it start, right? Because you can't just create an experience. Has to start somewhere. So where does it start?
well, it has to start with the other person, right? So if you are stepping into something brand new, let's take a product that you're trying to promote, right, into a certain customer target influence. And so, a lot of marketing will say you have to do your research and you have to understand, these customer surveys and perspective. And that's because you can't write a product portfolio or you can't write a marketing plan designed on what you hope to achieve,
Uh-huh.
right? Facts and figures and all of that, that's great. You have to have goals, but how are you actually going to get the product into the market so that it, as a brand, it becomes something that people say, I want to stand in line for it, like the iPhone, right? Or Coca-Cola, right? How did that become such a common household name that people said, I don't care how much it costs, that's what I want because that's what I enjoy, right? They told you were going to enjoy Coca-Cola. So we do, right? It's just like Disney World. People that win Olympics say the next thing that they want to do is they want to go to Disney World because they want to share that joy somewhere that they love and they know that they're going to have a great time. And so I think anything that we create, it's the responsibility. What's the feeling that you want them to have when they connect to your product or service? And so if it's something that makes them feel whole, that makes them feel like that they have achieved something greater, that they could not have done on their own, that they feel a partnership, a connectedness, and an energy, right, to do better and make an impact for them. That's the key. And so, marketing, so many things in marketing teach us in the right ways, like the instructions or the steps. But, I'm not about that. I can't do it like linear. I can't do anything linear because it doesn't make sense to me. I want to take things that are a little bit of everybody's, right? So, borrowing from a little bit of Disney and a little bit of, Apple and a little bit of production people, like you learn from David Letterman as a journalist. All these years you watch David Letterman, and I went to Ball State, so the technology center, and he had developed the whole communications group there at Ball State University, and so it was kind of like he was the icon, right? He was the icon for journalism, and so I thought, gosh, I want to be in broadcasting. And so I went there with the intention that was my dream. And then I got to college and I did not like the experience. I didn't fit in again as a challenger. I was like, I want to do college. I don't want to do it this way. I'm not a campus girl. I think I have other desires. And so I went home and I worked at a bank and I, just did that whole thing because I had to do it my own way. It wasn't that I couldn't do it. I just had a desire to do it differently. And so, right, the lessons are like right in front of me. when, when I go back and connect those dots, I say, yeah, no wonder I had to do it that way. But, Maria, I had left journalism for a long time as far as a hope of a career. And then every job that I took, so I was in banking, I was in fundraising, I got into medical devices, and it seemed like everything that I did brought me back to my passion of marketing and journalism. And so, right? So it just fits and it helps you become who you are supposed to become because people see your gifts and they see your heart. And so when I would show up in a room or in a boardroom, with here, we're going to do a whiteboard exercise with ideas, I would always be the one to kind of put those ideas out there that like, I don't like any of these. What if we do this? And then I would get tasked with the project. But the fun thing is, I love to create. So I didn't think of it as fear. It was more, let's get this done. And who do we need on the team to be able to help us create that customer experience? And so it's just how I've always thought. And so it helps just as you grow into it, right? You keep getting better and better at refining that.
Mhm. Thank you, God. And I love I love listening to your story because, from my personal experience, I've been in therapy, I've had coaches, and I know from many other people who I help as well that they do have these beliefs that stem from fear that prevent them from showing up as their full selves. And speaking about experience, me experiencing you, I think you're awesome. And I know when you see a person who shows up just as they are with whatever they have, like experiencing that person is so fun. It's so uplifting. It's so inspiring whenever you meet someone like that. So thank you for being here. And yes, I just love you.
Well, you know what? I think you don't hide anything, right? It's not like you have an agenda. It's not like you're afraid to say something because you're really showing up to add value to each other. You really want to learn. And so I think that's so important because you're like, okay, what can we do to collaborate together? How can we make things better? Is there anything that you've experienced that I've experienced that we can make a connection? That then we can do something broader to make a bigger impact. And I think that's the way, people like us, we show up with that mindset. And so the momentum is like, do I have enough energy to meet all the people that actually feel this way? And wow, we can actually change the world. We can change the world by doing this.
Totally. And that's, really makes me think about contribution, right? I'm showing up in the world in this conversation. Again, I'm showing up to my customer because you spoke to marketing. I'm showing up to my employees or to my coworkers with a mindset, how can I contribute, right? How can I connect with you and what can I do for you?
Mhm. It always is about that, right? Hmm.
It's beautiful. I think you've just explained the solution to all the problems, really.
Okay, now go do it.
Yes, but easier said than done, right? Go do it. So what's in the way? What's in the way?
Just a lot of junk. Like, we just need to get rid of that junk in our mind because so many people, right? They didn't grow up like I did, and I don't think that I'm different. I just think I have the ability to put the noise beside me, and so I don't. There are a lot of things that I've teached. That I teach in leadership classes, and it all bases on values. And so John Maxwell is my biggest mentor. There's a book, The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. And I started teaching that in March of 2017 after I went through certification. And I have taught that book every single week since that day that John said, he challenged me, read this book, do these lessons, do a mastermind for 1 year, and promise it will change you. And so I thought, well, okay, well, we'll see if I can do that, right? I don't like instructions, but I like challenges. So I took it on, and I'm telling you what, it did change me because I learned a ton about myself in personal growth that I had never really learned it that way before. And so everything else that, when you have a mentor that pours into you and you say, wow, that worked, and I see things a little bit differently now, and I see a greater impact, that helps me show up more authentically, in my own voice. It gave me a lot of clarity. And so then, several things have happened through the last few years with work changes and getting eliminated from a job that I loved that I thought, I'm contributing. How can you let me go? And making an example of, just, hey, we don't need you. So we're going to, eliminate this position. And I was like, I did nothing wrong. I'm like the star performer. But yet I had to come to the terms of my beliefs that I really had outgrown that. I'd really outgrown it. And I had become so strong in my own confidence that I think it was threatening to people. And so them making that decision for me was probably the best thing because I have just had the freedom now to choose where I want to spend my energy and how I want to challenge myself to do things and show up and create experiences. So it's been incredible.
Mhm. Thank you. Um, okay, I want to come back for a second to the process of creating an experience, because this is so interesting to me, both in terms of marketing and employee experience in the organization. So you said that the first thing you do is you learn about the person, right? If you're talking about marketing, you learn about the customer. How does your customer want to feel when they connect with your product? So can you give an example, like what's that process like for a specific product?
Yeah. So I'll take you to the Why Institute, right? So when you go through a process and assessment and you say, okay, what will that feel like if I got clarity in my life? So you can take the Why assessment, you can take Colby or DISC or Enneagram or Strength Finders. But if you've ever done any of those, once you take that, you go, ah, there are pieces to a puzzle that start to just go together and fit like a glove. So
Mhm.
once you understand that from your clients, right, and you say, okay, now I know how you operate, I know how you think, and so now I know how to come to you with a problem and to try to create a solution. And so if you get on their mindset, right, and so you're like putting all of your agendas behind you, and you're saying, what if the customer would tell me how they feel or how they want to be treated or how they will appreciate an experience, right? Is it because of color? Is it sound? Is it tactile? Is it something that they want, or do they have certain budgets, right? So it's all these things that you take into consideration and their personalities. And so when you understand that with your clients, you can help them better achieve what they're trying to look at in their life. So if they're serving clients, right? So in marketing, if I had doctors that I was serving, we weren't just serving the doctors, we were serving the patients and the insurance companies. And so we would have to think about a product line, like if it was for infection prevention, how was that going to then help the hospital reduce their rates so that they could get better insurance rates, so that they can get better advertising to their clients, which are us, as consumers of better services, right? And so just speaking into, I guess from a marketing side, speaking into how that makes people feel, right? Safe and secure instead of just numbers and dialect. Like you can say, come to us because we're going to give you a better discount for services. Well, I don't really care about that unless you're going to take care of me, right? And I'm going to make sure that I'm not going to get an infection or I'm not going to get sick. I would rather pay a bigger price knowing that I'm going to be well than than just a discount in my pocket. So I think it's who your client is. I work with a lot of medical companies today, but I also work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and so I think what helps them when I go through something like an assessment of the why, they understand first how they operate, and then they start to put these three, like why they do what they do, how they do what they do, and then what they deliver to the world. And they start to put a statement of clarity together. And so, what I mean by that is sometimes we'll say, like me, I thought I was a contributor, right? I thought I showed up to contribute just to add value to the world. And when I learned that my real why through this assessment was a challenger, I'm like, ah, I get it now. I don't want to just have a seat at the table. I want to change the conversation. I want to push people beyond their comfort zones because I am pretty comfortable pushing people. So, to push them with ideas. So, for my doctors, for my clients that are big corporations, and for my entrepreneurs, I help them really clarify what they're doing, why they're doing it, who they're serving. And so it gives them the opportunity to serve in a huge capacity and make a bigger impact.
Yeah, I can totally see that, because just thinking to myself, I've never taken a why assessment. Maybe I will after our conversation. Just
You should.
why? Who am
Yeah.
I? But it's kind of like this clarity of clearly seeing, oh, this is why I do what I do. And this is like, here is the value in it. And just really taking ownership of who you are in that way. I feel that that's very empowering.
It is because it speaks to, Simon Sinek did a TED Talk about 10 years ago, and that was his number one TED Talk was start with why. And so when Gary Sanchez designed the Why Institute, he went through 50,000 interviews and created this algorithm for this why assessment. And so it's so powerful because it's so predictable. It's like finite predictable. And you go, okay, if you start with why, with your actual why, and there's 9, and you start with that, and then you say, okay, if I could build from my why, and then speaking to the side of the brain that actually responds to people. So, right, there's the neocortex, and that cares about facts and figures. And then there's the limbic side of the brain. This is actually the emotional part that people respond to. So when you say, I'm in marketing, I'm in sales, I'm an influencer, I'm a coach, if you understand that and you can speak to the limbic emotional part of the brain for yourself and your clients and help your clients do that, it's a game changer. I mean, it literally, for some of my clients, Maria, it has helped them achieve new clients the first time that they've tried it. And so, and when I say that, it's, there's 9 whys. Let me tell you these real quick. There is contribute to a greater cause. There is challenge the status quo. There's trust. There's mastery. There's simplify. There's clarify. There is, let me see, there's right way, right? There is better way. And so all of these together, you say, okay, well, why is that different? So a right way person, I'll just take this. This is the furthest from mine, right? This is the person that has to have instructions about everything. Now, they don't think it's their way. They just know that there's a right way to do things. So if I'm in a situation where I have a client that's a right way person, how I need to speak to them is I need to give them instructions. I need to give them a process. I need to give them a chart. I need to give them guidelines where I won't show up that way with somebody that's a challenge person because I'm going to say, we're going to whiteboard this, right? We're going to do an exercise and we're going to create what you see as a vision. But if I have a different type of mindset, I know they're operating from, they feel very safe and secure and productive in this right way mode. That's what they need to survive. Those are kind of their survival skills. And so knowing that, I can be way more productive. I can give them a better experience. And I know that they're going to get more out of it so they can make a bigger impact.
Mhm. And it makes me think also about just general leadership and management and how important it is to know your people who work for you, right? And the
Exactly.
way you just described, this is the conditions they need to be the most productive. So how can I create an experience for them?
Exactly. Because it's not about just being a coach or a consultant. It's if you have a team, right? If you have a team of people, if you're working with 3 people and you have an organization where, you meet at a coffee shop and that's how you get your work done. But if you don't know how to communicate to each other because you're expecting them to listen to you, you're coming with your agenda, right? And if you can be more compassionate and say, gosh, if I could present things in a different format, that they would actually open up their minds because they know that I care about them. One of the biggest leadership lessons is people don't know how much you say, right? Until they know how much you care. So you need to care first about the people and then they will listen to you. And so, because they don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. And that is the key thing. And when you speak to the limbic side of the brain, you're saying, okay, I care that you have a process here, right? And so let's tune into that and let's figure out if you could explain that process. And if I give you the right structure to how you respond, gosh, that makes you feel safe and secure with me. Now we're going to have a great experience, right?
Exactly. As you were speaking, I was like, yes, this would make me, and this makes others feel safe. And that's what you need, the safety then to be able to do your best work, to show up as yourself.
Hmm.
Safety, absolutely.
Absolutely. I had a client that was an EMT. She's a teacher, an EMT, an educator. And so when she took her why, it was make sense. And she said, "Oh my gosh, what does that mean?" And I said, "No, no, no, this is great because you have always struggled with like why you can't connect or why you feel like you don't fit. And it's because that type of person takes a lot of complex data and they make sense out of things very quickly." So for her, she was like, "Ugh, that's why it's easy for me." But also, one of the things that they're challenged with is they can find solutions very fast, faster than most of us. So they see the answer like in 3 seconds, to a complex situation, and they can figure it out. And then they want to share it. They're like, "Oh, here's the answer," right? And the rest of us are like, "Wait a minute, we can't process that yet." And so that's one of the challenges. It's also a great gift. So when they know that, they can also respond to clients that they serve. Listen, if you've got complex situations, I'm the one that you need to make sense out of this. I can do it very quickly because it's my gift. And when they speak into that, man, dynamite, right? They can now serve a bigger population and impact in a greater capacity.
Absolutely, yes. When you put the right people in the right place doing the right job.
That's exactly right. And that builds your culture, right? So that's what sustains everything else around you because if you have the right team, if you're speaking the right language, if you have good communication that it's very clear and consistent, now you can build culture in yourself, in your workforce, in what your brand is, and then you attract, like Simon says, you attract the people that believe what you believe, and you're no longer like chasing down opportunities. You're just living in your own strength zone and you're living your best life.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you for bringing up the word sustain. So I want to ask you, how do you define sustainable work?
For me, it's showing up. It's for me as a challenge, right? So my why is challenge. So I know that structure is really difficult for me. It's really difficult because I don't like to stay in the lines. I don't like to have somebody give me a schedule. And so for me, I had to create something every day that I knew was going to help me with structure in the first part of my day. So again, John Maxwell gave me a challenge and he said, "Start reading the book of Proverbs for 31 days." Now, he said this to me back in 2019 and in September. And I thought, well, October, it's perfect time. It's 31 days. I'll start that. And so I invited a few people and I said, "This is what I'm going to do. Do you want to join me?" And so I had some people that did. And in October 1st of 2019, we started this morning devotional. And it was at a time in my life where I was transitioning. So I really needed structure. And my challenge brain was like, don't follow that. You don't have to be consistent. But it really did help me. Those 31 days kind of shined a light on my brain to say, you do need this structure. And look what it's helped you get clarity on and so many other things. And so, you know what, Maria? We kept going after October 31st.
Oh,
So today was, let me see here, it was 522 days that we have done this Bible study. So a
wow.
leadership devotional, 522 days from that one challenge. But because I started to understand that I needed to create structure to create that sustainability, that's the component that I was missing. And so, with that, and then really understanding through all these other assessments, bringing it in kind of like a puzzle and saying that fits like a glove, right? So, I think you have to personally kind of decide and dive into different things that are going to inspire you to, to kind of get that synchronicity. Once you find that, you got to stick with it because then you start to see the momentum build. And that's allowed me to keep my podcast going for 4 years, keep interviewing people, keep, building out my coaching and consulting business, and then have those other opportunities to create resources so that I can, do and host other people's events now. So I just absolutely feel like I'm living my best life because I got really focused in what my core values were and how I needed to structure my day to sustain it. And so again, it's how you scale yourself, right? So if you can understand how to sustain one day, then you can practice that with consistency, and then you can scale that out to really have your best life.
Mhm. Yeah, and what sounds like to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it's getting clear on your values and then creating structure that support it. So what you put as a structure in your day are the things that come from your values, come from your why,
Absolutely.
sustainable.
Absolutely. And like I say, every day, I don't feel like I have changed from anything that I was when I was 2 years old. I
Mhm.
just do it bigger. I do it more like an adult now, and I do it with bigger values and a bigger voice. And I have different people in my life, but I'm still doing those same things that I think I was influenced by when I was little, which is great because it just matches up. And so I live my life like an open book.
Amazing. Thank you. I want to circle back a little bit to, okay, so to the customer experience, right? We created this customer experience connected with their why. How then, and you talked earlier about sales team. Let's just speak a sales team.
Yeah.
Then once you understand your customer and how they want to feel, how do you teach the people in your company to create that customer experience?
It's so important. It's the same thing, if you do it for yourself or your family or a customer,
Yeah.
right? It's about leaving your agenda at the door. It's asking questions. It's really understanding. It's tuning into what they're saying. It's really having that listening component um, to be absorbing what they say, and you're hearing them. And so, a lot of what I teach in sales teams is communication,
Mm.
right? And so if we know how to communicate better, faster, just by listening, improving those skills, it really helps because so many sales teams, you just take this as, from sales and you think commission based, right? Every person says, "Oh, I hate salespeople because all they do is show up and they want to sell me the latest and greatest discount for the month. And they are just trying to get products off of their books and so that they can make money." Well, if you have a different type of salesperson that says, "Gosh, tell me how your system works. Help me understand when it doesn't work, what kind of pain you go through, and what would happen if we could take away that pain."
Mm.
You want to listen to somebody like that because they're there to serve you as a servant leader. And that takes communication and confidence, right? It's not about getting the pressure from your boss to say, "Well, you didn't hit your sales quota." Like going in with that mindset, you're never going to be successful. But if you go to serve the customer and you really listen to what their problems are, then you can make a solution and you can have a trusted partnership for life. Those are the types of people that their customers follow them from many companies that they may go to in their careers because they say, "You actually took care of me, you listened, you cared about me, and when I did have a problem, you weren't fearful." Right? We talked about fear in the very beginning, but salespeople also experience that. They get afraid that if something goes wrong, I'm not going to be able to take care of this customer. So I better charge them a whole lot on the front end because I'm going to have to put up with, their problems. Versus, gosh, if I help a customer solve the problem, if I help a customer work through the solutions and I'm a part of it, I'm going to be a partner for life. And
Mm.
then when they call me, I'm a resource. I'm not just a band aid, I'm actually a resource. And that's the key. That's the key to branding and sustainable relationships.
Absolutely. Thank you. It makes me think I have a friend, and she, as a salesperson in a luxury jewelry store, and she started there a few years ago. But what strikes me, what I love about her, is her approach to selling, like the expensive jewelry and expensive watches, is that her agenda is not just to sell. She's really trying to connect with the customer and ask them, so why are you buying this, right? What inspired this purchase? And she doesn't really look at the price. She doesn't try to sell the most expensive watch to the customer. It's just whichever one fits the best in her opinion, right? And she, over the years, has built a really big clientele, and a lot of people are returning to her, which I think is a very unusual sales tactic and very unusual just situation in the uh, luxury sales, what would you call it?
But the thing,
Situation.
because it's her personal brand, we talk about this all the time. People think that they have to go to a job and they have to act a certain way because they have to abide by their review that they're going to get from their boss that's been assigned to them, right? And so they can't act a certain way because their boss says, well, no, you can't do that to be able to get 5 stars, to be able to get a 3% raise, right? And so you start to like become something different sometimes when you go to careers that aren't fulfilling to you. And so if you can actually find something that you enjoy, you start to become your own personal brand. And then people will actually reach out to you and say, I want to have you come to my company because we see that you don't change no matter what company you go to. You know who you are and you serve, right? You're there to serve as a servant leader. And so then that's how you become a professional in the corporate world, in the corporate environment, because again, you're sustaining your own belief versus having somebody else tell you what you should or shouldn't do in each job. Because you're going to have many jobs during your career, and so if you develop that personal brand for yourself and that experience that people can expect every time that they encounter you, you're going to go way further in your life to just know that that's who you are in your own skin and don't change it.
Yeah, I hear you. Um, Another thing you said that we're talking about the why and the purpose and creating an experience and finding a job or a work that you love. And it also makes me think about like a person, an employee being a fit to a company, right? Because I want to be able, if I come to work for a company, I want to be able to align with whatever experience they're creating within their organization or with their customer, because I feel like that's sustainable, right? If I come to work, I'm like, yes, I want to be here and I want to be here for a long time. And yes, this is the experience I want to create for my customers. I believe what they believe. So
Right.
there is an alignment.
That's right. And that's right because the people, a lot of people would start in banking, take for instance that new tellers, we would be training them and they would say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe people are yelling at me and I'm trying to learn." And I'm like, "It's going to be okay, right? Just get confident in those job skills and then you can start to become, different parts of the organization that you can add more value to." And so it's not easy when you start, it's kind of like, does it happen overnight? No, it doesn't happen overnight. But when you start to release those fears and say, okay, if I don't get along with my boss or I don't see eye to eye with them, don't give up. If you're in something that you love, just keep knowing that if you're serving people and you're serving clients, that will sustain you. That attitude is going to get you through more than anything else because, bosses and jobs, they come and go. But what you do will prove more value to you in your life and your community and really help people connect to who you are.
Yes, thank you. So then what you do is truly who you are and the other way around. And I love that's how we started our conversation with you here today. How do you show up as your full self?
Mhm.
So can you speak a little bit about everyday leaders? What is it about?
Oh, I love this. Yes, everyday leaders. As I was going through the John Maxwell certification, I was getting ready to turn 50. And I thought, gosh, how am I supposed to show up at 50? Right? We talk about all these fears and what people put on you. And I was like, am I supposed to go climb a mountain? Am I supposed to go on a cruise? Am I supposed to have a party? And none of that felt right. And so what I knew is that when I was born, that my grandparents were 50 years old and they had the biggest influence in my life. And
Mhm.
so I thought, how am I supposed to show up at 50? Like if somebody was just getting born or just having a realization in their life about who they were and reaching their potential. And I was really focused on leadership. And so I thought, I need to create a podcast because, gosh, I love journalism and I should tap back into that because I love that space. And maybe I could interview people and learn about what they know about leadership. And wouldn't that be fun? And so here it came. It birthed the idea of everyday leaders being everyday people that are really leading their life with success. Now, the 50 and 50 was because My birthday is January the 12th. And so as I looked at my 50th year and my birthday on the calendar, I said, if I kick this off on my 50th birthday, that means I'll have 50 weeks left in my 50th year to do 50 shows. And
Wow.
that's how it began. And so here it is. 4 years. We're on the fourth year this year, and it is so much fun because people are starting to say, "Do I have to be 50 to be on your show? Or what's that about?" And I'm like, "No, it just started with my heart. What I believed was that every single person leads their life with success, and I really wanted to share their story and their success in their life. So that's what it's about."
It's amazing. I just am fascinated by you, and I love how what I'm observing, like you just have you have a passion, you have a thought. This is how I want to make my passion come true. You just go for it.
Yes, because I'm a challenge, because my brain is a challenger. Like, somebody said to me, "So who did you watch or what podcast did you follow to start your show and how did you know?" And I'm like, "I don't know. We just create. I don't worry about any of that. I didn't follow anybody. I didn't like listen to all these shows and say we have to do it this way. I just did it my way." Because I knew that that was how I could be authentic, and I wouldn't worry and I wouldn't have fear. And so has it been perfect? I don't know what you call perfect. I don't really worry about it. What I do want to do is serve people. And so when I do that and I show up, I think people realize it, and they come on and they want to be a guest because they're like, "Hey, I've got a story to share, or there's something on my heart that I'm passionate about and I want to get more um, I want to get the word out about it." And so I get lots of calls all day long, and I say, let's get it on the schedule because I'm never too busy to share somebody's heart.
That's beautiful. Where can people find that every day?
Yeah. Well, everydayleaders.com, really easy, everydayleaders.com. And I've got places where you can connect for live interviews, a connection call, a strategy call, a why assessment, a why class, lots of leadership workshops. Everything is right there at everydayleaders.com.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much, Melanie. So, what would be your what message could you give to our audience? What advice or some strategies for them to start living in their purpose?
You know, um, First of all, reduce the noise around you. Like, I know it's been hard through COVID, but just turn off the TV, reduce the noise of your family, stop listening to everybody else, and get your journal out and start writing down the 5 things that really inspire you in your life. And do one action step for each of those 5 things. So I don't care what it is. If you say, I want to learn how to play an instrument, right? What would you do next? Research the information on how to learn how to do that. I want to learn how to cook. Then what are you going to do next, right? I want to exercise more. Great. What are you going to do tomorrow? I'm going to walk around the block, right? It's that easy. It doesn't have to be complicated. But we let ourselves go and we think, well, I don't know what normal is supposed to look like anymore. And so I just want people to know, like, leading your life is making decisions and choices for yourself every day, not for your brother, your sister, your mom, your dad. It's about you. And so you got to stay healthy in your mind, body, and spirit. And so make those choices today, and you can do it because you're worth it.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, well, I'm so happy to have had you.
It's so awesome.
My heart,
I'm just so happy to be here with you, Maria.
thank you. It's just my heart is full. Like I love you. I love the way you show up and the way you speak, and it's just I think you're such an inspiring and fascinating leader.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You too. This has been awesome.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you tomorrow at Sustainable Work.